Hello, Doug here from the Hundredfold Journey. Thanks for joining us on this live video interview where we are using the month of May and we're calling it Miraculous May. And what we're doing is interviewing hundredfold individuals and hearing the miraculous stories in their life of how their life has turned around in regards to their identity. And when we talk about the miraculous or miracles, what we're talking about are things or events that have happened in their life that has kind of awakened them. If you look at Jesus, when he was here, he did many miracles, right? He healed the blind, he healed the sick, even raised people from the dead. And those are all symbols and metaphors of life today, because there's a lot of blind people around, spiritually blind, and there's a lot of people that need to be raised from the dead, if you will, meaning the mindset that they have is coming from death and they need to be raised. So again, the month of May, we're calling it Miraculous May, and we are going to hear the story from Cindy, who is one of our hundredfold members, and hear her story about her miraculous journey and where she's at today. So Cindy, thanks for joining us on this interview.
Thank you, Doug.
All right, really appreciate the time and just the willingness to share your story to our audience and have your miracles, if you will, out and for us to be inspired by, because really that's the idea here is wow, if that's possible for Cindy, then that's possible for me, and it's just the knowing that these things are possible. So Cindy, with that said, you've been on a journey, and I'd like to understand your stories and maybe some of the miraculous events that have occurred in your life over the years.
Okay, well, I'll start with basically my background, my relationship with God. I always felt like I've had several phases of it. I've never had any strong ties to a church. I don't think I've ever completely read the Bible. So I don't know if in spite of it or maybe because of it, I've always just kind of felt that it's me and God. I never used the phrase God is in me, and I never thought of it that way because it seemed blasphemous, but I did always feel that he was very close to me.
So somehow intuitively you knew that was the case, even though
Yeah.
it didn't come from outside sources. You just knew internally.
Yeah, especially when I was young. And then as
Oh,
I got
good.
older, outside sources didn't back me up on that.
Yeah,
So
right.
I started doubting, my own
Mm,
thoughts. But growing up, I would pray to God at night, every night without fail. If we had company over, everyone had to march into my room to get on their knees, and we'd say our
wow.
prayers, even an atheist uncle at one point. So I was a pretty strong-willed little kid when it came to that. But again, I went to catechism for a short time. Uh, my mom pulled me out because it scared me. The nuns really
Yeah.
scared me. There was an incident where it was about lying, and the nun had asked me if I had ever taken a cookie without
Mm,
telling my mom.
mm.
And, yeah, I love sweets. Of course, I taken probably many cookies. And
Right.
she told me that I was lying and that I would go to hell. And I still remember that feeling. I started crying, and I'm like, but it's just me and my mom and my dad doesn't eat cookies. So my mom knows I took the cookie. Why would I go to hell? Well, you didn't tell her. And it was just this huge back and
Oh
forth.
my
And
goodness.
I know. So that was like a very early. And then that's when I started thinking, I guess I'm supposed to be afraid of God, because if God's going to punish me
Mm,
for not even lying about it, but just not telling my mother that I ate a cookie when she knew I ate a cookie, because I'm sure I had crumbs all
yes.
over my face,
Right.
she knew everything. But I don't know that the fear really lasted, because it never felt right to me to be afraid of God.
Yes.
And then as I started getting older and I was a teenager, I just remember having all these conversations with God. And I think instead of writing in a diary so much, because my mom would read it all the time, and of
Yep.
course I was getting in trouble. So I would just have these conversations with God, and not really, I don't think I would call it praying, because now I would, then I didn't, because I wasn't asking for anything. It was
Well, it's
just,
a conversation.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was. And it was just me trying to sort out my feelings and maybe get a little clarity or a little understanding or a little guidance. But it's kind of like what Andrew Farley said in that video a few weeks ago about there are things that we know just intuitively
Yes.
about God. And that's exactly how I felt.
Mm.
But I had nothing to back me up. So I would always start doubting it.
Right.
And then, I would get an answer from God, but I would think, no, that's really not, that's my imagination. Or I would say, well, that's not how I want it to be. And so I would have this little tug of war thing going on. And sometimes it, I guess it was like my mom said, watch what you ask for from God, because he might give it to you. And a lot of times I realized my way was not the best way, but then God's saying, okay, well, let's try it this way now. And
right.
but
and it sounds like that voice that was inside was a gracious voice, a relationship voice, rather than maybe what that nun told you, something to fear.
right.
Would that be correct? It would be just a comforting and
Always.
yes.
Always. Yeah. Yeah. And even when, if I was in a doubting phase, it still was comforting, and
Yes.
it would pull me back in for a little while,
Yes.
but I don't know. And then I'll just jump to like last fall, when I joined the 100-fold journey. That was probably one of the lowest points ever in my whole life. Just suffering from depression and no desire to live, because every day was the same, just the same problems. I was really hard on myself with not being able to accomplish what I wanted to. I didn't have any goals because I didn't see any point in making any, because I felt I couldn't keep any. And when I saw the group, when I was invited to it, I mean, honestly, I'm like, another journey, because everything is a journey.
That's right. Here we go again.
Yeah. I mean, Weight Watchers was a journey, and reading a series of books is a journey. And I was like, but journey is something different than I'm doing right now, so I might as well give it a shot. And the first phase challenge that you guys did was the gratitude challenge.
Yes.
And I thought, oh, this will be a piece of cake. I had read The Magic back in 2013, I guess.
Yep.
And I had done that, and it really was magical. I mean, it was huge. Kind of scared me, because it was amazing. So I thought, oh, this will be a piece of cake, but I couldn't get past day one. I couldn't think of 10 things to be grateful for.
Right.
So for the whole challenge, I was just on day one. And I remember I was trying to, I told myself, well, just think of 5 things, 5 blessings. I couldn't think of 5. So then I started doing, okay, well, 10 favorite things, 10 things I like, 10 things I enjoy. And that was a little easier. I started with 5, and by the end of the challenge, I was able to come up with 10 things that I liked. And I was looking at it, I'm like, well, those are blessings.
Yeah.
To enjoy them, those are blessings. So that was eye-opening for me. And then when you did the identity challenge, the video that you did on the identity challenge, the video you did on November 4th, just was, that changed so much for me, because it affirmed. I mean, you told me, you told in the video, but you told me it was okay not to be afraid of God, that I didn't have to belong to a church to have a relationship with God, that I could just stand in my own belief, that I could trust myself. And I was like, wow, this makes a lot of sense. I could relate to this. And you did a little talking about meditation, I think, in that video. And that was one of the first times that I really sat down and tried to meditate. It was really hard to still my mind.
Yes.
But when I finally did, I heard. I know that you had said it in the video, but it was different when it popped in my head that time. It was just like, you already are who you're trying to be. So just relax.
Right.
And the way I know that was God's voice was just the sensation that went through my body right when.
Oh, I'm
And
getting tingles right
I
now
know
just
it's
hearing
doing
you
it now
repeat it.
too.
Yeah.
But just that sensation that went through my body, and I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, there was just mind blowing. You know, it was miraculous.
Right.
And from there on, just
So that voice you heard was the same voice from before, and you were able to recognize it.
oh yes, yes.
And you kind of jumped from, you know, your teenage years to where you're at now. So through those years, was that voice, did you hear that voice and then chose not to listen to that? Or what happened through those years? And then was that day, that moment in meditation, the refresher that was like, oh yeah, that's that voice that I haven't heard for a while? Just curious on the transition there.
Well, I think through most of my life, I just up until a few years ago,
Okay.
when my dad passed away,
Yeah.
it was heartbreaking for me. I was a daddy's girl, and
Yeah.
you know, it changed my life. It changed me, and I mean, I was a really good prayer with my dad.
Yeah.
I would, every single prayer that I asked for was answered with him. I say that from the bottom of my soul. Every single prayer. And so I don't think that I never went a long period of time
Yeah.
without God,
Yeah.
except up until about 2 years ago.
Gotcha.
And then just with the way that life was going, and there were so many changes, and I felt out of control, and I wanted to control it. So I kept trying to control it. I think I kept just really trying to do it myself. And I don't know. I don't know why there was like a separation. But
Yeah.
yes, when I did have that voice in the meditation, it erased those 2 years. It was like, okay,
Wow.
you,
Amazing.
and it was kind of like I said before, it's kind of like God saying, okay, you tried it on your own. Now let's go this way. Let's do
Right.
this.
Right. Amazing.
Yeah.
Miracle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and just from the way that I felt, never in my life would I have thought that I would have felt as down as I felt.
Yes.
And then from where I was just a few months ago to how I feel today,
Yes.
it's unbelievable. I mean,
Right.
not to overuse the word, but it really is a miracle. I mean, it is.
That's fantastic. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, the thing is too, that, you know, nothing has changed in my life. I still have the same circumstances,
Yep.
but my state of being, one of the
Yes.
10 truths,
Yeah.
is completely different. So it makes things easier. I'm not always beating myself up every night.
Yep.
Through another meditation, that's really the only time I have by myself. So that's why I kind of keep referring to it. But I was feeling really down about not getting everything done that I needed to the previous day with I take care of my mom. I'm a caregiver for her.
Yeah.
And I just started thinking, okay, well, what did you do yesterday? And I went listed in my head, like for 5 minutes, things that I did. And it's like, okay, well, it's not like you just sat around on Facebook all day. You know?
Right. Right.
So, but yeah. But for miracles, you know, my dad really was the biggest miracle.
Yeah.
And the one that I really do like to talk about was when he was 86 years old, and he had heart failure, and he needed to have a heart valve transplant.
Yep.
And he was assigned one of the top surgeons in San Diego. But the surgeon said, you know, he won't make it through the surgery. He said that.
Yeah, 86. Yeah.
Yeah. And he had heart problems that were untreated for several years. So there was a lot of damage there. And the surgeon just really kind of chances just are so low. He didn't want to do it.
Yep.
And I saw this look of fear in my dad's eyes, because that man was alert till the day he died. I mean,
Mm.
just,
Mm.
but anyway, we did, somehow I feel I found the right words to say to the doctor. So the doctor said, okay, then we will do the surgery, just
Mm.
knowing that the outlook is not good.
Yep. Right.
And they took my dad into surgery. And before they did, the surgeon asked me if I prayed. And I
Oh,
said,
wow. Look at that.
yeah. And he said, well, I'm going to ask you to pray, and pray really hard. So I was like, all right. So I started praying, and the surgery took longer than anticipated. And my
Yep.
mom, understandably, we were getting worried, and she was getting a little panicked.
Yep.
And I remembered a St. Jude prayer card that our friend
Yep.
had given me. And I pulled out the St. Jude card, and I'm like, Mom, let's read this. And she
Yep.
couldn't focus on it. So I
Okay.
started reading it out loud to her.
Yep.
And I just kept reading it over and over and over and over,
Mm.
until I felt like that same feeling, like with meditation,
Yep.
just that feeling wash over me.
Yep.
And I looked at her, and she's like, okay. And I stopped. Not too long after, the nurse came out, said the doctor will be with you shortly. Your husband pulled through the surgery, but
Right.
and when the surgeon came up, he walked up to me first, and he
Yep.
said, you prayed. And I said, I did.
Yeah.
And he said, I felt God's hand guiding mine right at a very critical moment. And I was like, cool.
And I just got tingles on that one. That's amazing.
Yeah. And, he had a hard recovery, but he did have like almost 10 more years
Oh, wow.
of a
Look at that.
really good quality life, doing what
So
he
he
enjoyed.
passed at 96?
98.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. He was a walking miracle. He really was.
Walking miracle, answer to prayer. And just to think that, those prayers that you were doing while you were waiting, and then that sense of peace that came over you, and then having the surgeon say, yeah, he sensed God's hand on his. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
All right. Well, anything else you'd like to share?
I can't think of anything. This,
All right.
what you're doing though is just so wonderful, and it's just been such a blessing and a godsend to me.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, and this was the whole purpose behind it, is to set people free from to their identity of who they already are. And it's just amazing to see or hear about your story, and how you had that knowing when you were young, and just that voice, and then through outside intervention or whatever, it got pushed down, but that voice was always there. And
Yeah.
just to have to, so that you knew that intuitively, that's pretty amazing. And now it's been awakened again. And I really like your point about your situation hasn't changed. You still have the same difficulties or circumstances. One of the 10 truths is circumstances don't matter, only state of being matters.
Yeah.
And really what that is just the eyes and the ears that you look at that. You just look at it so differently now, that there's not fear or anxiety or lack. It's the situation, and you can look at it through fear, or you can look at it through love, and the choice is ours.
Well, and the anxiety,
Yes.
For I think it was 26 years, I had to sleep with the television on every night, because I would suffer from panic attacks and anxiety attacks, and the nighttime ones were the worst.
Yeah.
So TV would kind of keep my mind from just repeating.
Yeah, going there, right? Going to that deep, dark place. Yeah.
Yeah, going to that little scab and just keep poking at it.
Yeah.
And about earlier this month, in the beginning of April, for whatever reason, the TV went off in the middle of the night, and I woke up immediately when it went off, because it was like, oh, TV's off. Right. And I was like, this is really nice. And I think that was like April 1st, and I've slept with the TV off every single night, which really is amazing. My husband is thrilled, because he said he was tired of listening to Everybody Loves Raymond night after night after night after night. Those are my people, Italians.
So
But
that's another miracle, right?
yeah,
Is
yeah.
being freed from that dependency of that. So
Well, and free from the anxiety attacks and the panic attacks.
mhm,
That's huge.
yes, yes. All right. Well, Cindy, thank you so much for spending the time and sharing your story. And it is a miraculous one, and it doesn't have to be something big. Just small things. Not to say that none of you, all of yours were big. I mean, your dad, praying for your dad, and the anxiety and the fear, and to be able to overcome all of those. I mean, those are huge. Those are miracles, right? But sometimes it doesn't have to be that. It could be the miracle of just spending that time outside and enjoying nature, and just appreciating that. I mean, that's a miracle because you're acknowledging the creation. So
Could see it.
yeah, exactly. So again, Cindy, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And we will be talking later.
And thank you, Doug. Thanks so much.
All right. Take care now. Bye for now.
Bye.